The rain fell in sheets across Newark, New Jersey, turning the streets outside Blackwell Towers into rivers of gray. It was the kind of November downpour that sent executives running for their town cars and made the homeless huddle deeper into doorways. But one small figure stood perfectly still at the security gate, rain plastering dark curls against brown skin, clutching a wrinkled piece of paper like it was a winning lottery ticket. Amara Davis was 8 years old, and she had exactly one chance to save her mother's life. Marcus Blackwell's limousine pulled through the gates at precisely 6:15, as it did every evening. Through tinted windows, he scrolled through acquisition reports, his mind already dissecting the California tech startup he planned to devour by Friday. At 42, Marcus had built an empire on the simple principle that sentiment was expensive and ruthlessness was profitable. His colleagues called him the Iron King. His competitors called him worse. He preferred both titles to his given name, which reminded him too much of the soft boy he'd killed off years ago in pursuit of billions. The car slowed. Marcus glanced up, irritated. A child stood directly in the vehicle's path, soaked through, trembling but refusing to move. His driver, Henderson, lowered the partition. "Sir, security's handling it. Just a homeless kid. We'll be moving shortly." Marcus should have nodded and returned to his reports. Should have. But something about the child's stance, the way she held that paper like a shield, made him press the button to lower his window an inch. "Please," Amara's voice cut through the rain, surprisingly strong for someone so small. "I just need 5 minutes. I can clean. I can file papers. I can do anything. My mama needs medicine and the hospital won't help without money, and I know I'm only 8, but I'm a really good worker and please, just give me a chance." The words tumbled out in a rehearsed rush, like she'd practiced them 100 times in front of a mirror. Which, Marcus would later learn, she had. 2 security guards emerged from the gatehouse, their faces apologetic masks. Marcus recognized the larger one, Stevens, a former Marine who took his job seriously. "Come on now, sweetie," Stevens said gently, reaching for Amara's shoulder. "You can't be here. Let's find you somewhere warm and dry." Amara jerked away, and for a moment, Marcus saw something flicker across her face. Not fear, not anger. Desperation so pure it was almost holy. She looked directly at his window, somehow sensing he was watching, and held up her paper. It wasn't a resume. It was a crayon drawing of a woman in a hospital bed, surrounded by hearts, with "Save Mama" written across the top in uneven letters. Marcus felt something twist in his chest, an unfamiliar sensation he quickly identified as discomfort. He pressed the intercom. "Henderson, give the child $200 and let's move." It was more than generous, more than he'd given any stranger in years. The window began to rise. But as Stevens lifted Amara gently aside, she did something that would haunt Marcus for the next 72 hours. She stopped struggling, stopped begging. She just looked at him with those enormous brown eyes and whispered words that shouldn't have been audible over the rain and the engine, but somehow reached him with perfect clarity. "Your mama's name was Dorothy May. She sang in the church choir. She told you that being rich without being good is just being empty." Amara's voice was soft now, almost conversational. "She'd be real sad about who you became, Mr. Blackwell." The limousine lurched forward. Marcus's hand froze on his phone. His mother had been dead for 23 years. Killed in a car accident when he was 19, poor and desperate in Washington, D.C., before he'd built his first million, before he'd hardened himself into the man he'd needed to become. Nobody knew Dorothy May's name. He'd scrubbed his past clean, paid to have records sealed, ensured that Marcus Blackwell, billionaire, had no connection to Marcus Johnson, the scholarship kid from Southeast D.C. who'd lost everything. "Stop the car," Marcus said quietly. Henderson hesitated. "Stop the car now." The limousine halted. Marcus emerged into the rain without his umbrella, water immediately soaking through his $3,000 suit. Amara stood between the 2 security guards, looking smaller and more fragile now that her moment of courage had passed. She was shivering violently, her lips tinged blue. Marcus approached slowly, aware that every camera at the gate was recording this, that tomorrow's gossip blogs would have a field day with the Ice King standing in the rain for a homeless child. He should care about that. Strangely, he didn't. "Who told you that name?" His voice came out harsher than he intended. Amara flinched but held his gaze. "Nobody told me nothing. I just know things sometimes. Mama Helen says, I got a gift for seeing what matters. Her teeth chattered. She says everybody's got a story, and if you listen real carefully, you can hear it even when they don't say nothing out loud. It was nonsense. Had to be. Some kind of con, though what 8-year-old could pull off something this elaborate? Marcus pulled out his phone, dialed his head of security. Victor, I need a full background check on a child, approximately 8 years old, standing at the northeast gate. I want to know everything. Parents, address, school records, medical history, everything. I want it in 2 hours. Who told you that name? His voice came out harsher than he intended. Amara flinched but held his gaze. Nobody told me nothing. I just know things sometimes. Mama Helen says, I got a gift for seeing what matters. Her teeth chattered. She says everybody's got a story, and if you listen real careful, you can hear it even when they don't say nothing out loud. It was nonsense. Had to be. Some kind of con, though what 8-year-old could pull off something this elaborate? Marcus pulled out his phone, dialed his head of security. Victor, I need a full background check on a child, approximately 8 years old, standing at the northeast gate. I want to know everything. Parents, address, school records, medical history, everything. I want it in 2 hours. He looked at Stevens. Take her to the warming station. Get her dry clothes, hot food, medical attention if she needs it. She doesn't leave the building until I have answers. Amara's eyes widened. I don't need charity, sir. I need work. I need to earn it. Despite everything, despite the rain and the confusion and the impossible knowledge this child had just displayed, Marcus almost smiled. Pride. He recognized it because he'd worn it like armor his entire life. Consider it an advance on your first paycheck, he said. We'll discuss employment after you're not hypothermic. As Stevens guided Amara toward the building, she looked back once. Thank you, Mr. Blackwell. You just made a choice your mama would be proud of. You got this. It's okay to feel scared of doing the right thing. That means it matters. Marcus stood in the rain for 3 minutes after his limousine door closed, watching the small figure disappear into Blackwell Towers. His phone buzzed with emails, meeting reminders, profit margins demanding attention. He ignored them all. Dorothy May's voice echoed in his memory, a ghost he'd spent 2 decades trying to silence. Baby, money can buy you everything except the things that matter. Don't forget that. He'd forgotten. God help him, he'd forgotten on purpose. Now an 8-year-old child with impossible knowledge had just reminded him, and Marcus Blackwell had the terrible, creeping suspicion that his carefully constructed world was about to come crashing down. What terrified him most was the small, long-buried part of his soul that whispered, good. Victor Chen's report arrived in 90 minutes, not 2 hours, because Victor understood that when Marcus Blackwell said he wanted something, delays were career-limiting. Marcus sat in his office on the 47th floor, the city lights of Newark spreading below him like scattered diamonds, and read the file 3 times. Each reading made less sense than the last. Amara Nicole Davis, born January 14th, exact location unknown. No birth certificate on record. Found as an infant in an abandoned warehouse off Route 1 in Baltimore, Maryland, wrapped in a pink blanket with a single note pinned to it that read, her name is Amara. Please love her. Found by Helen Davis, a 62-year-old cleaning woman who'd been cutting through the warehouse district on her way home from her night shift at a Connecticut hospital. Helen had taken the baby to authorities, but when no one claimed Amara after 6 months, and the foster system seemed ready to swallow her up, Helen had done something remarkable. She'd liquidated her tiny savings, hired a lawyer, and fought for 2 years to adopt the child. The courts finally relented when Amara was 3. Since then, they'd lived in a 1-bedroom apartment in Bridgeport, Connecticut, Helen working 3 jobs to keep them afloat. Until 6 months ago, when Helen was diagnosed with stage 4 breast cancer. Treatment costs had demolished their savings in weeks. They'd been denied assistance because Helen made $30 too much to qualify for certain programs. That cruel gap, where you're too poor to afford help, but too rich to receive it. Marcus set down the file and looked at the second report, the one that made his hands shake. DNA analysis. He'd ordered it on impulse, swabbing Amara's cheek while the medics examined her, telling himself it was routine security protocol. Telling himself it meant nothing. The results said otherwise. Probability of paternity, 99.97%. Amara Davis was his biological daughter. Marcus Blackwell, who'd sworn off marriage and children as distractions from empire building, had a child. An 8-year-old daughter he'd never known existed. The room tilted slightly. He gripped his desk, forcing himself to breathe, to think logically. When? How? The report included approximate conception date, late March, 12 years ago. Marcus pulled up his calendar archives, scrolling back through years of meetings and acquisitions until he found it. March 23rd, 12 years ago. The Royal Preston Club in Washington, D.C. The night that changed everything. He'd been 30, hungry and desperate, pitching his first major venture to a room full of old money who saw him as entertainment. A young black man from the wrong side of D.C., trying to convince them he understood finance better than their Harvard degrees. They'd laughed him out of the room. He'd gone to the club's bar, drowning his humiliation in scotch he couldn't afford, ready to quit and crawl back to the nothing he'd come from. That's when she'd approached him. Stunning, confident, wearing ambition like perfume. "You presented well," she'd said, sliding onto the bar stool beside him. "They're fools for not seeing it." Her name was Victoria Stone, she said, an executive from Massachusetts, in town for the same conference. She'd bought him drinks, listened to his dreams, told him he reminded her of herself, back when she'd been hungry too. One drink became 5. 5 became a hotel room. Morning became awkward goodbyes and exchanged numbers that neither of them called. 3 weeks later, Marcus had secured funding from a different source, begun building what would become Blackwell Industries. He'd thought about Victoria occasionally over the years, especially after she'd surfaced as an executive at Chin Technologies, one of his competitor firms. They'd crossed paths at industry events, always professional, never acknowledging that night. He'd assumed she'd forgotten it, same as he'd tried to. Now, staring at the DNA results, Marcus understood with cold clarity that Victoria Stone hadn't forgotten anything. She'd planned it. All of it. The chance encounter, the hotel room. The pregnancy she must have discovered weeks later. And then what? She'd carried his child and abandoned her in a Maryland warehouse. Why? For what possible purpose? His phone buzzed. Victor's voice came through tense. "Sir, we have a situation. Victoria Stone is in the lobby. She's demanding to see you. Says it's about the child." Of course she was. Marcus almost laughed at the predictability. Send her up. And Victor? Record everything. 5 minutes later, Victoria Stone walked into his office like she owned it. She'd aged well, Marcus noted distantly. 42 now, same as him, with silver threading through her dark hair in a way that looked intentional and expensive. She wore a power suit in midnight blue and an expression that could cut glass. "Marcus, still working late, I see. Some things never change." She didn't sit, didn't wait for an invitation. "Let's skip the pleasantries. The girl is mine. Biologically, I mean. I assume you've run the tests by now, which means you know she's yours too." Marcus leaned back in his chair, projecting a calm he didn't feel. "Sit down, Victoria. Let's talk about why you abandoned our daughter in a warehouse and let a stranger raise her for 8 years. Victoria's carefully composed mask cracked slightly. She sat, crossing her legs with deliberate grace. "It wasn't supposed to happen that way. You have to understand, I was 30 back then, clawing my way up in a company that barely tolerated women in executive positions. Getting pregnant would have destroyed everything I'd built. But I also saw an opportunity." She paused, gauging his reaction. "You were going to be somebody, Marcus. I could tell. Young, brilliant, hungry enough to do whatever it took. I thought if I kept the pregnancy secret, raised the child quietly, I could use her later as leverage. A connection to you when you inevitably succeeded." The casual cruelty of it took Marcus's breath away. "You plan to use our child as a business asset." Victoria shrugged, unrepentant. "Don't act scandalized. You've done worse in your acquisitions. I've read the profiles. The Iron King doesn't build empires on sentiment." She leaned forward. "But things got complicated. Postpartum depression hit harder than I expected. The baby cried constantly. I was alone, terrified someone at work would find out, spiraling. One night, I just drove to Maryland with her, found that warehouse, and left her where someone would find her. I told myself it was better for everyone. She'd get adopted by a nice family. I'd get my career back, you'd never know." Marcus felt sick. "You left a newborn in a warehouse in January. Someone found her within hours," Victoria snapped. "I watched from my car to make sure. That cleaning woman, Helen whatever, she took her straight to the hospital. I followed the case for months, made sure she was safe before I let it go. Let it go, Marcus repeated quietly. You mean forgot your daughter existed until it became convenient to remember? Victoria's jaw tightened. I built Chin Technologies into your biggest competitor. I made director by 35. I did what I had to do. But now the girl showed up on your doorstep. And if this gets out, if people learn we have a daughter, it changes everything. Our companies, our reputations, the power dynamics in our entire industry. So here's what's going to happen. You're going to pay for the mother's, Helen's, medical care. You're going to set up a trust for Amara. And we're going to co-parent quietly, professionally, in a way that benefits all parties. Marcus stood slowly. Get out of my building. Victoria blinked. Excuse me. You heard me. You abandoned your daughter. You show up 8 years later talking about power dynamics and business benefits. You don't get to parent her. You don't get to be near her. If you try, I'll bury you so deep in legal action you'll wish you'd stayed anonymous. Victoria stood too, anger flashing in her eyes. You can't cut me out. I'm her biological mother. And I'm her biological father who's going to do what you should have done 8 years ago. Be there. Marcus moved to his office door, opening it. Victor will escort you out. If you contact Amara or Helen, if you breathe a word of this to anyone, I'll use every resource I have to destroy you. Test me. For a long moment, Victoria just stared at him, shock and calculation warring on her face. Finally, she walked to the door, pausing beside him. You think you're better than me? You're not. We're the same, Marcus. Ruthless, ambitious, willing to sacrifice anything for success. Playing daddy for a few weeks won't change that. After she left, Marcus stood at his window watching the city. Victoria was wrong. They weren't the same. Or maybe they had been, until a little girl stood in the rain and reminded him who he used to be, who his mother had raised him to be before poverty and ambition had twisted him into something unrecognizable. His phone buzzed again. A text from the building's medical center. Patient stable. Requesting to see you. Says she needs to explain about knowing your mother's name. Marcus headed for the elevator, his carefully ordered world crumbling with each descending floor. The medical center occupied the entire third floor of Blackwell Towers, a facility Marcus had installed years ago for executive health screenings and the occasional workplace injury. He'd never actually visited it himself, preferring his own private physicians in Manhattan. Now he walked through pristine hallways that smelled of antiseptic and something sweeter, maybe lavender, following a nurse named Patricia who kept glancing at him like he might evaporate. They stopped outside a recovery room where voices drifted through the partially open door. One belonged to Amara. The other was unfamiliar, older, with the kind of warm rasp that came from years of hard living and harder loving. Baby girl, you can't just run up to billionaires in the rain. The older voice was saying, half scolding, half laughing. What if he'd been mean? What if security had called the police? Amara's response came swift and certain. But he wasn't mean, Mama Helen. He was scared and sad and lonely, and I knew if I could just make him remember his mama, he'd remember how to be good again. And I was right. He helped us. Marcus pushed the door open slowly. The room was small but comfortable, decorated in calming blues and grays. Amara sat on the exam table, now dressed in oversized scrubs that someone had rolled up at the ankles and wrists. Beside her stood a woman who made Marcus's throat tighten with unexpected emotion. Helen Davis was perhaps 70 now. The file had said 62 when she found Amara, but cancer had aged her. She was thin in that fragile way that spoke of illness, her dark skin stretched tight over elegant bones, her hair wrapped in a colorful scarf that had seen better days. But her eyes were fierce and bright, and full of protective love as she positioned herself slightly in front of Amara, a lioness guarding her cub. Mr. Blackwell, Helen said evenly. Thank you for the medical attention and the warm clothes. We'll be going now. I've got bus fare back to Bridgeport. She reached for Amara's hand. Marcus held up his own hands in a gesture of peace. Please, Mrs. Davis. I'd like to talk, if you'll allow it. There are things about Amara that I need to understand. Helen's eyes narrowed with the suspicion of someone who'd learned that powerful people rarely wanted to just talk. My daughter doesn't need to be understood. She needs to go home and do her homework and be 8 years old, not some curiosity for rich folks to study. She's my daughter too, Marcus said quietly. The words hung in the air like smoke. Helen's hand tightened on Amara's. What did you say? Marcus moved slowly to the room's small couch. sitting so he wouldn't tower over them. I ran a DNA test. I'm sorry, I should have asked permission, but I needed to know. Amara is my biological child. Her mother is a woman named Victoria Stone, an executive I met 12 years ago in Washington, D.C. One night, one mistake, and Victoria got pregnant. She abandoned Amara in that warehouse. You found her and gave her the life she deserved. The life her biological mother couldn't be bothered to provide. The color drained from Helen's face. She sank onto the exam table beside Amara, one hand pressed to her chest. Lord have mercy. All these years, I wondered. The police said they couldn't find any leads, that sometimes desperate mothers just leave babies where they'll be found safe. I thought maybe she was young, scared, alone. I prayed for her every night. That woman who gave me the greatest gift of my life. Amara squeezed Helen's hand. You okay, Mama? You need your medicine? Helen shook her head, tears tracking down her weathered cheeks. Baby, I'm fine. Just shocked is all. She looked at Marcus with an expression he couldn't quite read. So what now? You here to take her away? Because that's not happening. I don't care how many billions you got or how many lawyers you can buy. She's mine. I raised her. I loved her. Biology don't mean nothing against that. Marcus felt something crack in his chest, the same sensation from earlier in the rain, but stronger now. I'm not here to take her away. I'm here to help. Helen, I know about your diagnosis. Stage 4 breast cancer. I know the treatments you need are experimental and not covered by insurance. I know you've been rationing your pain medication to save money for Amara's future. I want to pay for everything. The best oncologists, whatever treatment gives you the best chance. In-home care, everything. And I want to set up a trust for Amara. Make sure she never has to beg strangers in the rain again. Helen's jaw set in a stubborn line he recognized from Amara. We don't need charity. It's not charity, Marcus said. It's responsibility. She's my daughter. You're her mother in every way that matters. Let me do this one thing right. The door burst open without warning. Victoria Stone strode in, 2 security guards trailing behind her apologetically. Ma'am, you can't just, one started. Victoria ignored them, her gaze locked on Amara with an intensity that made Marcus stand instinctively. So this is where you've been hiding her. My daughter. Helen rose too, moving in front of Amara with surprising speed for someone so ill. Your daughter? You got some nerve walking in here claiming that title. Where were you when she had colic and cried for 6 hours straight? Where were you for her first steps, her first words, her first day of school? Where were you last month when she held my hand during my chemo and told me stories to make me forget the pain? Victoria's composure cracked, revealing something raw underneath. You think I don't know what I gave up? You think I don't regret it every day? I was 30, terrified, alone, and drowning in postpartum depression that made me think she'd be better off without me. I made a choice I can't take back. You're right, Helen said, her voice softening slightly. You can't take it back. That baby you left in a warehouse is gone. She grew into this beautiful, empathetic, brilliant little girl without you. And I'm sorry for your pain, I truly am, because I know what it costs to give up a child. But sorry doesn't earn you the title of mother. Love does. Sacrifice does. Being there when things are hard does. Amara had been silent through the exchange, watching the adults argue over her like she was a prize to be won. Now she spoke, her young voice cutting through the tension. Can I say something? All 3 adults turned to her. She looked at Victoria with those wise, too old eyes. You're sad. Real sad. Down deep where you hide it from everybody else. You think making money and being important will fill up the empty spot, but it won't. It just makes the empty spot bigger. Victoria's face went pale. You don't know anything about me. I know you're scared, Amara continued gently. Scared that if you're not the smartest or the richest or the most powerful, nobody will love you. But that's not how love works. Love isn't something you earn. It's something you accept. Like Mama Helen accepted me when I was just a baby nobody wanted. She reached for Helen's hand. I don't hate you for leaving me, but I can't love you just because we got the same DNA. Love takes time and trust and showing up. If you want to try, really try, we can talk about it someday when I'm ready. But right now, I already got a mama, and she needs me. Victoria's carefully constructed facade shattered completely. She sank into a chair, shoulders shaking with silent sobs. I don't know how to do this. I don't know how to be anything except what I built myself into. Marcus knelt beside her, surprising himself. Then maybe it's time we both learn. You're right, Victoria. We are alike. Ruthless, ambitious, empty. But Amara and Helen are giving us a chance to be something different. Something better. We can co-parent from a distance, support her while Helen raises her, and maybe over years, if we prove ourselves worthy, earn the right to be called her parents. He looked at Helen. If that's acceptable to you. Helen studied them both for a long moment. These two broken billionaires asking permission to orbit her daughter's life. Finally, she nodded. Under conditions. Amara's well-being comes first, always. No using her for business leverage or publicity. No confusing her with mixed messages about who her real family is. You want to be part of her life. You earn it slow and steady, same way you'd earn trust from anyone. And you go through me first. Always. Agreed, Marcus said. Victoria wiped her eyes, nodded mutely. Amara smiled, that radiant expression that seemed to light the room from within. See? You're already learning. It's okay to feel confused about big changes. That just means you care enough to want to get it right. You've got this. Marcus looked at this 8-year-old child who'd somehow become the wisest person in the room and felt his old life crumbling away completely. Good. Let it crumble. Let the Iron King melt down and be reforged into something resembling the man Dorothy May had tried to raise. He had no idea how to be a father, but for the first time in 20 years, he wanted to learn something that couldn't be measured in profit margins. The Blackwell estate in Greenwich, Connecticut, sprawled across 12 acres of manicured perfection that Marcus visited maybe twice a year. He preferred his Manhattan penthouse, the city's relentless energy matching his own. But cities weren't places for sick mothers and 8-year-old girls who needed stability, so on a gray December morning, Marcus found himself directing movers to convert the East Wing into something resembling a home. Helen needed a ground-floor suite with medical equipment. Amara needed a bedroom that didn't echo with emptiness. Marcus needed to figure out how any of this worked before he destroyed it through sheer incompetence. The purple goes on that wall, not that one. Amara directed from her perch on a stack of boxes, pointing imperiously at the movers struggling with a butterfly mural. And the bookshelf has to be by the window so I can read in the sunlight. Mama Helen says natural light is good for growing brains. Marcus stood in the doorway watching her orchestrate the chaos with the confidence of a general commanding troops. She'd been living here for 2 weeks now, and already she'd transformed the sterile mansion into something resembling a home. There were drawings taped to the refrigerator, books scattered across every surface, and the previously silent halls now rang with Helen's gospel music and Amara's off-key singing. It was disorienting and uncomfortable, and Marcus found himself listening for those sounds whenever the house went quiet. Helen appeared beside him, moving slowly but steadier than she'd been a month ago. The treatments Marcus had arranged, experimental immunotherapy at Yale New Haven Hospital, were showing promise. Her oncologist used words like cautiously optimistic and remarkable response. Helen used words like blessed and miracle. Marcus, who believed in neither blessings nor miracles, believed in the $250,000 treatment protocol and the best medical minds money could buy. But he kept that to himself. She's got you wrapped around her little finger already, Helen observed, amusement dancing in her tired eyes. Marcus shifted uncomfortably. I'm simply ensuring she has adequate resources for her development. Helen laughed, the sound rich and knowing. That why you bought her 17 books about astronomy after she mentioned liking stars? That's adequate resources? Marcus had no defense for that. Or for the telescope currently being installed on the roof. Or for the marine biology consultant he'd hired after Amara expressed interest in dolphins. Or for the 3-hour argument he'd had with his corporate attorney about establishing a scholarship fund for children of single parents because Amara had mentioned a friend at school whose mother worked 2 jobs. Fatherhood, Marcus was discovering, was a slippery slope that began with basic necessities and ended with him seriously considering buying an aquarium. A large one. She makes very compelling arguments, Marcus muttered. Helen patted his arm with affection that felt unearned but warm. Welcome to parenthood, baby, where logic goes to die and your heart makes all the decisions. She headed toward her suite, calling over her shoulder. Oh, and she wants to have a tea party with you at 4. Attendance is mandatory. She's already set out the good china. At precisely 4 o'clock, Marcus found himself sitting on a floor cushion that was at least 2 sizes too small for his 6-foot frame, surrounded by stuffed animals arranged in a circle like silent witnesses to his humiliation. Amara presided over a child's tea set with the gravity of a UN ambassador hosting peace talks. She'd insisted he wear a paper crown decorated with glitter and the words, "Best New Dad Learning." He was wearing it. This was his life now. "One sugar or two, Mr. Blackwell?" Amara asked formally, wielding a tiny plastic teapot. "Marcus," he corrected gently, as he had been for 2 weeks. "You can call me Marcus. Or Dad, eventually, if you want. But not Mr. Blackwell. That's for business associates." Amara considered this seriously while pouring imaginary tea. "But what if I'm not ready for Dad yet? Mama Helen says it's okay to take things slow, that love can't be rushed even when people want it real bad." Marcus felt his throat tighten. "Your Mama Helen is very wise. How about Marcus for now? And we'll see what feels right as we go." Amara nodded, satisfied, and handed him a cup of air. "You have to pretend to drink it. That's the rules." Marcus dutifully sipped his invisible tea. "Delicious. Is that Earl Grey?" "It's unicorn sparkle tea," Amara said seriously. "It tastes like strawberries and magic and makes sad people feel better. You're still sad a lot, even when you smile." "I can tell." Of course she could tell. This child saw through every wall Marcus had spent decades constructing. "I'm working on it." Sad is a hard habit to break when you've been doing it for a long time. Amara refilled his cup. "Mama Helen says the best way to stop being sad is to help other people stop being sad. That's why you should come to the hospital with us tomorrow." Marcus set down his teacup. "The hospital? For Mama Helen's treatment, yeah? But also the children's wing. There's kids there who don't get visitors 'cause their families are working or live far away, or sometimes they don't got families at all. I go twice a week and read to them, or play games, or just sit with the ones who are too sick to play. You should come." She looked at him with those enormous eyes that could probably convince him to relocate Mount Everest if she asked. "Those kids, they think being rich means you're happy. But you could show them that everyone's got hard stuff, even billionaires. That'd be real helpful for them to see." Marcus opened his mouth to decline, to explain that his schedule was impossible, that he had board meetings and acquisition calls and 100 urgent matters requiring his attention. Then he looked at Amara, at this 8-year-old who'd begged him for work in the rain and was now teaching him how to be human again, and heard himself say, "What time should I be ready?" The next afternoon, Marcus followed Amara through the pediatric oncology wing of Connecticut Children's Medical Center, feeling more nervous than he'd been before his first billion-dollar pitch. Children in various states of illness looked up from beds and wheelchairs, some bald from chemotherapy, some impossibly small and fragile. Amara greeted each one by name, remembering details about their interests and fears, dispensing hugs and jokes with the ease of someone who'd been doing this for years. "Everybody, this is Marcus," Amara announced to a playroom full of kids. "He's real rich and kind of scared of feelings, but he's learning. Be patient with him." A boy of about 10 with a port in his chest and no hair looked Marcus up and down skeptically. "You're the Marcus Blackwell? The billionaire dude?" Marcus nodded, bracing for whatever came next. "Cool. You got any games on your phone?" For the next 2 hours, Marcus sat on a too small plastic chair, teaching a rotating cast of sick children how to play various phone games, listening to their stories, answering questions about what it was like to be rich with an honesty that surprised him. "It's lonely," he told a girl named Sophie who'd asked if having money made you happy. "You can buy anything except people who care about you for real. That's free, but it's also the hardest thing to find." Sophie, who was 9 and waiting for a kidney transplant, nodded wisely. "Yeah, my dad left when I got sick, 'cause he said it was too hard. Mom says he wasn't worth keeping anyway, but I think she's sad about it." Marcus felt anger flash through him, bright and hot. "Your father is a coward. You're incredibly brave, and he missed out on knowing someone amazing. That's his loss, not yours." Sophie's face brightened with a smile that made the anger worth it. By the time they left, Marcus had made tentative plans to return next week, had promised to look into funding a new gaming system for the playroom, and had taken more photos with children than he'd taken in his entire adult life. In the parking lot, Amara slipped her small hand into his much larger one. "See? Helping people feel less sad makes you feel less sad too. It's like magic, but real." Marcus squeezed her hand gently. "When did you get so wise?" "I was born wise," Amara said matter-of-factly. "Mama Helen says God makes some people old souls so they can help other people remember what matters. I think maybe you used to be an old soul too, before you forgot. But it's okay. You're remembering now. You got this." Over the following months, Marcus's carefully structured life underwent a revolution. Board meetings were rescheduled around tea parties. Acquisition calls happened from the bleachers of Amara's soccer games, which he attended religiously despite understanding nothing about sports. His executive team adjusted to their CEO showing up with glitter in his hair from craft projects and answering emails with one hand while helping with homework with the other. Victoria made good on her promise to earn trust slowly, visiting twice a month under Helen's supervision, bringing thoughtful gifts and asking careful questions about Amara's interests. The visits were awkward, weighted with everything unsaid, but they were happening. That was progress. One evening in late March, almost 4 months after that rain-soaked encounter, Marcus found Amara on the estate's back terrace, staring up at stars visible despite the light pollution. He sat beside her, following her gaze upward, thinking deep thoughts. "Thinking about how people are like stars," Amara said. "Some shine real bright, but they're already dead. They just don't know it yet. And some are small and quiet, but they're actually full of all this energy waiting to come out. You were a dead star for a while, Marcus. But I think you're lighting back up." Marcus pulled her close, this miracle child who'd crashed into his life and cracked him open. "You know what I think? I think you're the brightest star in any sky, and I'm just grateful I finally learned to look up." Amara leaned against him, comfortable and trusting in a way that still staggered him. "That was real corny, Marcus. But I liked it anyway. You're getting better at this dad stuff. Just so you know." 5 years passed like water through open fingers, each day unremarkable, yet somehow transforming everything. Helen Davis died on a Sunday morning in May, peacefully in her sleep with Amara holding one hand and Marcus holding the other. The experimental treatments had given her 5 years she shouldn't have had. 5 years to watch her daughter grow from a precocious 8-year-old into a thoughtful 13-year-old who still read to sick children every week and still believed the world could be better if people just remembered to care. Helen's funeral filled a small church in Bridgeport with cleaning ladies and hospital workers and sick children who'd recovered enough to attend, all of them testifying to a woman who'd loved extravagantly despite having so little. Marcus delivered the eulogy, his voice breaking only twice. "Helen Davis taught me that wealth isn't measured in dollars, but in the number of lives you touch with kindness. She was the richest person I ever knew." He meant every word. After the funeral, Marcus retreated into his work with an intensity that worried his executive team. He threw himself into the foundation he'd established in Helen's name, funding medical research and supporting single parents. But the philanthropic work felt hollow without Helen's wisdom guiding it. Amara tried to reach him, but grief had rebuilt some of the walls Marcus thought he'd demolished. He was present physically, attending her school events and ensuring she had everything she needed. But emotionally, he disappeared back into the cold place where feelings couldn't hurt him. Victoria, surprisingly, stepped up. She'd spent 5 years earning Amara's trust one awkward visit at a time, learning to be something resembling a mother. Now she stayed at the Connecticut estate 3 nights a week, helping Amara process her grief, filling some of the void Helen had left. Marcus should have been grateful. Instead, he felt like he was failing everyone, drowning in a loss he didn't know how to navigate. 6 months after Helen's death, Amara made a decision. She was 13, technically too young for the boarding school she'd set her sights on, but Amara had always been exceptional. She applied to a prestigious academy in Rhode Island that specialized in developing young leaders and social entrepreneurs. Marcus signed the applications mechanically, not really processing what they meant until the acceptance letter arrived. "You're leaving," he said flatly, staring at the embossed paper. They sat in the study where he spent most of his time now, surrounded by work he used to insulate himself from pain. Amara settled into the chair across from his desk, looking older than 13, grief having aged her the way it aged everyone. "I need to learn how to build something that matters. The school has programs in nonprofit management, social justice, community organizing. It's what I want to do with my life, Marcus. Help people the way Mama Helen helped people. But I can't learn that here, watching you disappear into your work and pretending you're okay when you're not." Her words landed like punches. "I'm fine. You're not fine. You're sad and scared and you're hiding again because feeling things hurts too much. I get it. I'm sad too. I miss her so much some days I can't breathe. But hiding doesn't honor her memory. Living does. Loving does. Being brave enough to keep caring even when it costs you everything. Marcus wanted to argue, to explain that she didn't understand adult grief, adult complexity. But Amara understood everything, same way she'd understood about his mother's name 5 years ago standing in the rain. So you're leaving me to make a point. I'm leaving so we both have space to figure out who we are without Mama Helen holding us together, Amara corrected gently. And because I'm 13 and I need to be around people my own age instead of taking care of sad adults all the time. It's not abandonment, Marcus. It's growth. There's a difference. She stood, moved around the desk, hugged him with the fierce intensity Helen used to deploy. I love you. You're my dad. Really, truly. Not just because of DNA, but because you showed up and kept showing up even when it was hard. But you got to do the work now. You got to figure out how to live with loss without letting it turn you back into the Iron King. I believe you can. You just got to believe it too. She left for Rhode Island in September. The house felt impossibly empty. Marcus tried to fill it with work, with foundation initiatives, with anything that didn't require him to sit with his own thoughts. Victoria called weekly, checking on both him and Amara, offering support he didn't know how to accept. The months blurred together, a gray numbness punctuated by occasional visits from Amara during holidays when she talked about her classes and her friends and the nonprofit she was planning. She was polite but distant, giving him space he didn't want but apparently needed. 2 years crawled past. Amara turned 15, then approached 16. Marcus turned 47, then 48. The foundation grew, impacting thousands of lives. Blackwell Industries continued dominating markets. None of it mattered. He was the dead star Amara had warned him about, shining bright but empty inside. Then, on a November morning that felt unremarkably like the one 5 years ago when Helen died, Marcus's assistant informed him that Amara was in the lobby. Not calling ahead, not scheduled, just there. He found her standing by the security desk, no longer a child, but not quite fully adult either. 20 years old, wearing jeans and a Stanford sweatshirt because she'd graduated early from the academy and started college at 17. She looked like Helen around the eyes, like Victoria in the determined set of her jaw, like some perfect synthesis of all the strong women who'd shaped her. Hey Marcus, she said softly. We need to talk. They went to his office, that same space where so many transformations had begun. Amara didn't sit. She pulled out a folder, set it on his desk with the same gravity she'd once used serving imaginary tea. This is a proposal for Second Chances Initiative. It's a comprehensive program providing job training, housing support, and medical assistance to people experiencing homelessness. Not charity. Opportunity. The same kind of opportunity Mama Helen gave me. The same kind you eventually gave yourself permission to accept. Marcus opened the folder, scanning pages of research, budget projections, partnership proposals. It was thorough, brilliant, the kind of social entrepreneurship that could actually change systems instead of just putting band-aids on symptoms. This is ambitious. It's necessary, Amara corrected. And I can't do it alone. I need a partner who understands business infrastructure, who has connections and resources and experience building organizations from the ground up. I need someone who remembers what it's like to be desperate and to have someone take a chance on them. She met his eyes directly. I need you, Dad. Not your money. You. Your time. Your guidance. Your heart. But only if you're ready to actually live again instead of just going through motions. The word Dad hit him like lightning. She'd said it casually, naturally, like it had always been there waiting. Amara, I don't know if I. You're scared, she interrupted gently. Scared that caring about something this much means you could lose it like you lost Mama Helen. Scared that investing your heart, instead of just your money, makes you vulnerable. But Marcus, that's what makes it matter. Mama Helen taught us that love is supposed to cost you something. Otherwise, it's just a transaction. She moved around the desk, the way she had years ago, and took his hand. I'm not asking you to stop being sad about losing her. I'm asking you to honor her by doing what she'd want. Living fully, loving bravely, building something that makes the world gentler for people who need gentleness. You got this. I know you do. Question is, do you believe it? Marcus looked at this extraordinary young woman his daughter had become, thought about the terrified 8-year-old who'd stood in the rain begging for a chance, remembered Helen's laughter filling empty halls and her wisdom filling empty hearts. He thought about Victoria, who'd learned to be a mother one awkward visit at a time. He thought about dying stars and living ones and the choice between shining emptily or burning truly. When do we start? Relief and joy flooded Amara's face. Right now? Today. I've got a meeting scheduled with potential community partners in Newark at 2. You're coming. She pulled him to his feet. And Marcus? Thank you for not giving up. On me. On yourself. On the possibility that broken things can be remade into something beautiful. That's the real legacy Mama Helen left us. Not perfection. Perseverance. 6 months later, Second Chance's initiative opened its first facility in the same Newark neighborhood where Blackwell Towers stood, a deliberate choice to plant hope where Marcus had once planted only ambition. Former executives worked alongside formerly homeless individuals, the barriers between them dissolving in shared purpose. Victoria joined the board, using her strategic mind to expand operations. Marcus discovered that building something that healed people was infinitely more satisfying than building something that simply made money. On the 1-year anniversary of the initiative's launch, they'd helped 243 people find stable housing and employment. But Marcus's favorite success story was the young single mother they'd hired as a case manager after training her, who told him through tears that someone had finally given her the chance she'd been begging for. He thought about Amara in the rain, about Helen's unconditional love, about his own mother's long-ago warning that money without goodness was just emptiness. He'd been empty for so long. Now, surrounded by people whose lives were changing because someone cared enough to invest in their humanity, Marcus Blackwell finally understood what wealth actually meant. That evening, Marcus found Amara on the facility's roof garden, a green space they'd built for residents and staff. She was planting tomatoes with a group of children from the neighborhood, her hands dirty and her laugh bright. She looked up as he approached, smiled that smile that had cracked him open years ago. You know what Mama Helen would say if she could see this? Amara asked. Marcus settled beside her, accepting the trowel she handed him. That we're finally using our blessings the way they were meant to be used. Close, Amara said. She'd say that love is the only investment that multiplies when you give it away. And that broken people who choose to heal together become stronger than people who were never broken at all. She squeezed his hand, dirt and all. We're doing good, Dad. Real good. And I'm proud of us. Marcus squeezed back, throat tight with emotions he'd spent years running from, and now welcomed as proof he was alive. Me too, sweetheart. Me too. As the sun set over Newark, painting the sky in shades of gold and amber, Marcus thought about that rain-soaked evening 5 years ago when a little girl's whisper had terrified him with its truth. She'd told him he was empty. She'd been right. But she'd also believed he could be filled again. And in believing it, in living it through her own fierce example, she'd made it true. This story reminds us that it's never too late to remember who we were meant to be. Helen Davis showed us that love transforms poverty into richness, that one person's compassion can ripple across generations. Marcus learned that success without heart is just noise, that vulnerability isn't weakness but the foundation of real strength. Amara taught us that children often see truth adults have trained themselves to ignore, and that wisdom has no age requirement. If you're feeling lost today, remember, you're not too broken to be remade into something beautiful. Every moment offers a chance to choose love over fear, generosity over selfishness, connection over isolation. You've got this. It's okay to feel uncertain about who you're becoming. That just means you're growing. Now, before you go, please like this video if this story touched your heart. Subscribe to our channel for more inspiring family folktales. Share this with someone who needs hope today, and comment below telling us about a time when someone's kindness changed your life. Your story matters. We'd love to hear it.